Cohen, and Hinda Esdras and Hinda Bas Hanach Ephraim. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshamas will have an aliyah, and the families ein nechama. So let's begin. Vehecha shaminon l'Rabbi Akiva zu lemala mizu. So let's remember again. Yesterday, we began the dramatically riveting conversation about the framework of tsaras. And remember, Rabbi Akiva has an interesting model. I'll just show you, just for Chazara purposes, if you take a quick look back to Hey Amud Beis for just a moment, 5b, and if you look in Rashi, 3 lines into the wide lines in Rashi, just as Rashi is a good little nugget of Chazara, Rabbi Akiva, Kevan da Amar Lekaman, Maros Negoim Zula Malamizun Nishnu, Keseder Ma'alasan. Rabbi Akiva, I will say, in his reading of the Brisa, or reading of the Mishnah, understood that the types of tsaras were mentioned in Keseder Ma'alasan. Keseder Ma'alasan, for lack of a better term, means in terms of the intensity of their whiteness. Hashelek, so most remember again, number 1 was Baheres, because the Brisa said, the Mishnah said, that Baheres was as white as snow. Under that, Vahat Semer. Under that, Rabbi say ultimately again was Tzemer. Tzemer is Seis. So again, Rabbi Akiva holds there's Baheres, there's Seis, then there is Sid, white like the lime of the Beis Hamikdash, and then Krum Shal Beitza, and then ultimately again the membrane of the egg. So also remember again in Rabbi Akiva's model, the way we list the order of the Negoim is Avos and then Toldos. So remember again, the 2 primary types of tsaras colors are Baheres and Seis. Each of them have a derivative. Baheres has a derivative which is Sid, white like plaster. Seis has a derivative which is Krum Shal Beitza, a membrane of the egg. So what happens? So amazingly enough, Rabbi Akiva's model, he understands it ultimately again to be first Avos, then Toldos. So in order of whiteness, Rabbi will say, it is Baheres, then underneath that Seis, then underneath that Sid plaster, and then finally on the bottom is Krum Shal Beitza, the membrane of the egg. That's Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi say, now why is this order important? Because as we already saw before in our discussion yesterday, so there is this concept ultimately again of the tsaras requires a shear, as we'll discuss. We'll get into this. Requires a certain amount. The question is, are the different colors able to combine to form the shear for tsaras? So Rabbi Akiva says yes, but ultimately again they have to be able to one color can only connect with the one above it. Therefore, how you understand the order is ultimately again of exceptional importance. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Akiva, Zulam al Mizum. So from where do we know from Rabbi Akiva that ultimately the order is Baheres, Seis, Sid, Krum Shal Beitza? If you want to say it's from the following Brisa, Rabbi Yossi, Shah Rabbi Yeshua, Pnosh Rabbi Akiva, Me Rabbi Akiva. So also maybe you'll say it's from the following Brisa. Rabbi Yossi said the following. One time Yehoshua, the son of Rabbi Akiva, asked his father Rabbi Akiva the following kasha. Why is it that we said in the Mishnah that when it comes to Maros Negoim, that when it comes ultimately again to Tsaras, that there are 2 which are really 4, right? Why is it that we formulated it in that way? Amar lo, ve'im lav ma yomru. So Rabbi Akiva responds to nu, if they didn't say it like that, so how should we say it? Yomru mikrum beitza ulamala tame. Why don't you say the following? That anything above, anything whiter than krum shal beitza, anything whiter than the membrane of the egg, by definition should be tamei. Rabbi Yeshua posits that at the end of the day, if krum shal beitza is considered to be the bottom, the least white, right, the darkest of all the colors, just say anything above krum shal beitza ultimately again will be tamei. Amar lo, to which he responded, Lomar shemitztarfim ze'im zeh. To teach us ultimately again, so the formulation was such that Shnaim Shein Arba, to teach us ultimately again what Rabbi was saying, that they're all considered to be one cohesive entity, and therefore again all of the colors have the ability to go ahead and combine one with the other. Take a look at Rashi for just a moment. Yomru mikrum shal beitza lamala tamei. Achar she'in lanu lechalik b'maros lovan lamala mikrum beitza ela dalid maros halalu yomru kol mara lovan shum mikrum lamala tamei. The Carmel on the Olam Yishana Adam Latami, the Dark Tzara, Vlamis Kirshmosan. So we'll say, Yoshua, son Rabbi Akiva says the following: Father, if indeed all of the colors combine with each other, so then why not just say in the Brisa, from Krum Shal Beitza, from the membrane and of the egg and above, from the membrane of the egg and above, everything goes ahead and combines. Once you go ahead and you make that statement, then Lamaisa again, I know that everything in fact combines. Why do you need to get into Stein Shein Arba? So Rabbi Akiva responds, Amar Lo, just go to the next line in Rashi, Lomar Lacha Shemitztar from Zemze, to teach us that in fact the colors combine with one another. Rashi says, Lekach Shanoom V'Sidrum Lomar Lacha Shekeseder Hazeh Mishnasan, Lekach Derech Tzirufam, Va'adayin Ein Onu Yodim Be'ez Seder Hushona Osam, or Mechuvas Beno Anu Bain Lomos. So also listen to this. So to which Rabbi Akiva responds to teach us that no, the four colors of Bosai don't just combine indiscriminately. Rather, again, there is a seder, there is an order ultimately, again, for how they can be mitzaref, how they can combine one with the other. So we'll say, here's what we have so far. We have, this is actually very exciting, we have Rabbi Akiva telling us that there's an order to the colors. What's the order to the colors? The order is Baheres Seis, the Avos, and then the Toldos, Sid, Krum, Shal, Beitza. We also know that the colors combine with each other. How the colors combine, ultimately, again, is the subject of discussion. But what we know so far is that they are mitzarif one with the other. Now, we'll say now it sounds like the way they're mitzarif is the following: that we pretty much work our way up. That Krum Shal Beitza could go ahead and be mitzarif with Sid with Seis with Baheres. So the Gemara says, Amar Lo v'yomru mikrum Beitza lamala tome umitzarfin zemzeh. Why don't you just say from Krum Shal Beitza, from the color of the membrane of the egg and above is Tameh, and it has the ability to combine one with the other. Amar Lo, so he said to him, Lomar Lecha, so we'll say what that comes to teach us is, Kol Kohen Sheno Baki Bahanu B'Shmo Seyen, Eino Roas Hanagim. But that teaches us another halacha, which is that if you don't know what you're talking about, don't get involved. Which we'll say is a general klal in life, but specifically applies over here that when it comes to Negat Saras, that Lamaisa, again, if a Kohen is not well versed in the colors, do not get involved with paskening shailas if you don't know if you're not exceptionally proficient with the colorations. V'ilu misit heichal ulamala lo kamar. So I'll say, but yet interestingly enough, it doesn't say from sid heichal. It doesn't say from the color of plaster and above will be tame. Why not? Midalo amarle shmamina. The Shmiya lev Rabbi Akiva, the Amar lekulu lebahadi seis mitzarfin. So we'll say it must be ultimately again that it must be that we learn out from here that according to Rabbi Akiva, kulu lebahadi seis mitzarfin. That ultimately again everything has the ability to combine with seis. Remember again, seis is the av underneath bahares. The dilma seis v'toldasa bahares v'toldasa. Maybe when it comes to Nabal says the following. Maybe Seis has the ability to combine with its Tolda, and Baheres has the ability to combine with its Tolda. I will say, and remember again, so each of them, so Baheres has a Tolda, the Tolda, the offshoot of Baheres is Sid, is the color of plaster, and the Tolda ultimately of Seis is Krum Shal Beitza, the membrane of the egg. So maybe ultimately again, each color, each subsidiary color, secondary color, each tolda has the ability to combine with its av. Ella mid Rabbi Chanina. Rather says the Gemara learned from Rabbi Chanina. What does Rabbi Chanina say? Rabbi Chanina. Mashal Rabbi Akiva lamad avadome. What could Rabbi Akiva's model to? What could it be compared? Listen to this. La arba kosel shal chalav. Both say it can be compared ultimately again to 4 cups of milk. So la arba kosel shal chalav. 1 cup of milk had 2 drops of blood fall into it. And the other had 4 drops of blood that fell into it. And one had 8 drops of blood that fell into it. And one had 12 drops of blood. So we'll say, what's going on over here? The point over here is the more blood that falls into the milk, what? So the less white it becomes. That's all. It's just trying to give a mashal ultimately. So you have to understand something. See, here's what's interesting. So today, if you wanted to go ahead, I think like when the Beis Hamikdash goes ahead and is rebuilt, the Karov, and once again, but presumably there's going to be tsaras. Tsaras is directly tied to the Beis Hamikdash because tsaras is an incredible. This is just an aside. Tsaras is an incredible gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why is it a gift, we'll say? Because tsaras is like instantaneous divine feedback. Right? Tsaras says, you're messing up on the job, right? Sarah says you're not doing something. So all of us love instantaneous feedback, right? We thrive on it. We love it, especially when it's unsolicited. Right? But on a serious note, to get back from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong is an incredible gift. So we'll say, so I think like when the Beis Hamikdash is going to be rebuilt, so how are they going to do it? So b'pashtos, there's going to be like, what do they call it when like the painter or the carpeting guy comes with his a palette, right? A palette, or is going to come, so when the Beis Hamikdash, so they'll have a palette. What do they do before they had a palette of colors? So again, they give these images, because these images were helpful, at least in the times of the Gemara, were helpful ultimately, again, for looking at different shades of white. So you have a cup of milk that has 2 drops, 4 drops, 6 drops, 8 drops, 12 drops, and some say 16 drops of blood. Shekulam maras lovanhe. Now both say all of these look white. Ella shezeh lemala mizeh, v'zeh lemala mizeh. But rather, again, I will say you see that they differ in their intensity of white. So Rabbi Akiva therefore says that the 4 different colors of white, because remember, we have 4. We have Baheres, Se'es, Sid, Krumshel, Beitza. Those are our 4 levels. So Rabbi Akiva is suggesting that the 4 levels combine in their order of intensity of their whiteness. Eimor Disham say Rabbi Akiva, Bepasuch. So maybe Rabbi Akiva holds his shita when it comes to Pasach. And I will say, what's Pasach? If you take a look at Rashi, this is 5 lines up from the bottom in Rashi. I will say, by the way, we're gonna get great clarity on this, because right now this is all subject to Machlokes. We're gonna learn a Rambam on this. That's why I WhatsApped you the Rambam last night. I'm sure most of you probably read it last night as soon as you got it. I didn't want you to spoil it. I should have said, please don't read this till tomorrow, because I know how this shit works. So we'll see it inside in Mirza Hashem to get a little bit of clarity. The Rambam will clarify all of this. So again, same with the Sham said Rabbi Akiva Pasach. So we'll say, what's Pasach? Look at Rashi. 5 lines up from the bottom. Pasach mu'urav hu nega lavan adamdam hakasa b'Torah. So we'll say Pasach. Bar Pasach refers to a type of negat saras that has a reddish hue. So it says the Gemara, Eimer Desham say Rabbi Akiva Pasach. Maybe Rabbi Akiva holds of this combining of choseh, of intensity, meaning maybe Rabbi Akiva holds that ultimately, again, different colors only combine in their order of white intensity only by Pasach, maybe only by a negat saras that has a red discoloration. However, b'chaluk, I will say chaluk refers to a pure white discoloration. Mishamisle, who says that Rabbi Akiva will say that it combines in its order of intensity. Or maybe you'll say ultimately again, the same Rabbi Akiva holds this din by pasuk, he also applies it by chaluk. Same way he holds it by the reddish hue negat saras. Maybe he also applies it by the pure white negat saras. To which the Gemara says, but even by a pasuk itself, where do we see that Rabbi Akiva holds this? Good morning, Mr. Schoenfeld. So the Gemara says the following: V'hatanya, we learned Rabbi Akiva Omer adamdam shebazeh v'shebazeh ki yayin hamazug b'mayim. Then what Rabbi Akiva holds that adamdam, the reddish hue, when it comes to a negat saras, that has a reddish hue, so that ultimately again is kiyayin hamazug b'mayim. That is like diluted wine. Ella shal baheres azak kisheleg v'shal sid diamena. So we'll say before we go on, take a look for just a moment at the last 2 lines of Rashi. Last 2 lines on the page. It's in the middle of Rashi, at the end of Rashi, Divrei Masechah Shebazeh, v'shal sid diham himena. U'mediktani achi b'seifa shaminan l'reisha d'shebazeh v'shebazeh d'kamar b'sheleg v'sid kamar alma seder mishnasel shel Rabbi Akiva sid achar sheleg. So we'll say, so what the Gemara is suggesting over here is the following. If you look at this brayso, so the brayso is Vatay Rabbi Akiva Omer Adamdam Shebazeh v'Shebazeh Ki Yayin Hamazug B'Mayim. Ella, so the Gemara says, the Rabbi Akiva says, the Adamdam Shebazeh v'Shebazeh. Actually, take a look at the top of the Rashi. So we're really start from the beginning. Shebazeh v'Shebazeh Al Karchach Al Rishon v'Sheni Kamar. Rabbi Akiva is talking about the first 2 types of tzaras. Shekein Lashon Mishnah V'Achi Kamar Adamdam Sheberishon v'Sheni Siman pesichas odem shebahem nikaros b'makom acher. But ultimately, again, the red discoloration that Rabbi Akiva is referring to is where the redness is recognizable in some part of the tzaras spot. Kigon tipas dam bechalov umar'ein lo odom v'lo lavan. And I will say it doesn't look red and it doesn't look white. Ela ki yayin hamazok usvios lavan. Rather, it looks like yayin hamazok, not discolored wine, diluted wine. V'sivos of lavan, and the edges of the discoloration are white. Ela sha'ad momiso shel sheleg aza kilomar levana mishal sid. Rather, it means that its redness is more intense than the plaster, than the stain, or than the discoloration that's like sid. V'shal sid diha mehemeno. And ultimately, again, the sid is of lesser white intensity in it. I'm just reading this line again, and since it said this at the end of the Braisa, Sham'inan l'reisha d'shebazeh v'shebazeh d'kamar b'sheleg v'sid. We'll say, therefore, you see ultimately that what? That when we said before, ultimately again, shebazeh v'shebazeh, that was referring to sheleg and sid. Almost seder mishnasas Rabbi Akiva sid achar sheleg. We'll say the takeaway from all of this is what? That in Rabbi Akiva's order of whiteness, ultimately, sid comes after sheleg. Now, we'll say, now remember, what does that mean, sid comes after sheleg? That means that Rabbi Akiva seems to be seeing that the avos, the order is avos, av and its tolda, av and its tolda. So it'll be baheres, then sid, and then seis, and then krum shal beitza. So Amar Bezer will say, Ela shal baheres shal alza kishaleg, v'shal sid diaymena. So rather, therefore, again, in the order, ultimately, you will say the intensity, first we'll have baheres, and then afterwards is sid, Amud Beis. V'im isa, shal tsemer dihami menemi baile. And if it was true that ultimately, again, Rashi says, V'im isa, did tsemer achar sheleg tanilu. And if it was true that indeed, we'll say we go ahead and we put tsemer. Now we'll say, remember again, tsemer is what? Tsemer is seis. Seis is the color of white wool. If it was true, like we said before, then the proper order of the colors would be what? Baheres, which is again pure white like snow. Then after that again would be seis, which is the color of pure wool. Then you said have sid and krum shel beitza, to which the Gemara says, Amri einach inami. That is true. Vatanya, but we learned, Rabbi Nassan Omer, Lo Sham Rabbi Akiva, Shal Sid Dihaimena. It's not that Rabbi Akiva said that Sid ultimately again is a lesser intensity. Ela Shal Tsemer Dihaimena. Rather, what Rabbi Akiva said of Osai is what? Is that in fact the proper order is Baheres, then Seis, which is the color of wool, then Sid, then Krum Shal Beitza. Uminalan de Baheres Azahi. And I will say, from where do we know that Baheres, okay, so now we're taking a step back. From where do we know ultimately again that Baheres is the most intense? When we say most intense, means the whitest of all of these tzaras discolorations. Amar Rabbi, Amar Kra, because the pasuk says, V'im Baheres Livonahi, because the pasuk says, In Baheres Levanahi, not Levana, I'm sorry. In Baheres Levanahi. So the idea over here is that what? He Levana, Ve'in Acheres Levana. So we'll say the fact that it describes Baheres as Levana tells me that what? That Baheres is in fact the most whitest. That's not the whitest, right? The most white, ultimately, again, of all the discolorations. Tan Rabbanan, so the Gemara says, Baheres Amuka. So we'll say this is actually interesting. Amuka literally means like deeper. We'll say what this means over here is the following. When you have a contrast of a very light spot against something darker, so the way the Gemara is describing it is that the lighter spot almost seems to have a depth to it, in contrast to the surrounding area, which is darker. That's what the lashon of amuka. That's why the Torah's lashon of amuka min ha'ar. So if the skin looks one color and the discoloration is much lighter than the surrounding skin, so it looks deeper than the surrounding skin. Baheres amuka. V'cheinu omer umara amok min ha'ar. We'll say this is like ultimately again the sun, which appears to be deeper, right? Something the more lighter something is, ultimately again the lower it appears, the deeper it appears. Seis, we'll say what is seis? Ein seis ela gavoa. We'll say the lashon of seis, meaning the etymological root of seis itself means what? Higher. something higher. V'chinu omer, al kol ha'harim haramim, v'al kol ha'givaos hanisos. Sapachas, in sapachas elat tefila. Both is actually very interesting. So what the Gemara is pointing out over here is something really fascinating, which is that the names of these discolorations themselves help us in remembering the hierarchy. So Baheres is the most intense. Now that we don't really have we don't have an etymological hint for that. What we have over here is instead, what does the Torah say? Baheres levanahi. So it tells the way we're interpreting that is the Baheres is the whitest of all of the tzaraas discolorations. Okay. After that, what's next after that? Seis. So we'll say seis means it's higher. Higher than what? Higher than the other discolorations that come under it. Not as intense as Baheres, but higher. So we'll say, remember again, this is important because Baheres and Seis are the two avos, are the two primary categories of discoloration. Baheres, the most white, on the white spectrum again. Seis is right after that. And what happens next is Sapachas. And we'll say, what does Sapachas mean? Ein Sapachas elat tefila. We'll say Sapachas just means something that is what? That is secondary. V'cheinu omer v'amar savcheni na. Because Rabbi say the pasuk over here that the Gemara quotes from Shmuel Aleph. V'amar sefacheni na el achas akahunos lechal pasachem. Rabbi say this is actually interesting. This is the punishment of Eli Cohen. When Eli Cohen is told that his sons, remember again, Eli was the Navi, the Kohen Gadol during the times of Shmuel, and Eli is given a very dramatic punishment that his sons are going to die early, and ultimately, again, will be cut out, ultimately, of the Mishmoros of the Kahuna. So Shmuel Navi says to Eli that your sons, your offspring, they will beg the other Kohanic groups to include them in order to eat bread. Supposed to see from here that what? Safachas means something secondary. Omer. So we'll say, listen to this. So here's what's amazing. So what is a sapachas? A sapachas ultimately again is a secondary color. We'll say now we're going to now see is that there is a sapachas that is associated with Baheres, and there is a sapachas that is associated with Seis. So Baheres and Seis are our avos, are our primary categories, and each of them ultimately what? Have a secondary category as well. Ashkechon, Tfeila l'seis. So we see a secondary category for Ashkechon Tfeila l'seis. We have a secondary category for seis. So Ashkechon Tfeila b'seis, Tfeila b'heres milah. So we'll say we know that seis has a secondary category. What's the secondary category of seis? So we'll say, what do we call that? We call that krum shal beitza, the color of the membrane of an egg. Where do we know that even Baheres has a secondary category? Tfeila b'heres minolan. Rabbi Zera nemra levana b'seis and nemra levana b'heres. It says, Rabbi say the word levana. It says white by seis, and it says white by Baheres. Ma levana ha'amura b'seis yeshlo tfeila. Just like the whiteness that is stated by seis has a secondary color, which is called krum shal beitza. Af levana amura bebaheres yeshlo tefila. So Rabbi say the whiteness that is mentioned by Baheres also has a secondary color, which we will call what Rabbi say, which is called sid, which is called ultimately the color of plaster of the Beis Hamikdash. Nisatana heitil akasav l'sapachas bein seis leBaheres. The Torah mentions sapachas in between seis and Baheres to teach you lomer lecha keshem shetfeil l'seis kach tfeil leBaheres. The same way that there is a tafel color to seis, so too there is a tafel color to Baheres. So we'll say, what comes out for our purposes is the following. We have here's what everybody will agree with. We have two categories of avos. So when it comes to, there are essentially four what we'll call four tsaras. Now there are really more, but for our purposes now there are four tsaras discolorations. Two avos and two toldos. The two avos, the two primary ones are what Rabbi saying, Baheres and seis. Each of them have a sapachas, a secondary color. Baheres has a sapachas that is called sid, the color of plaster, and seis has a secondary color that is called krum shal beitza, that ultimately is called the color of the membrane of the egg. They're both say in order of whiteness. What's the order of whiteness? So the order of whiteness is Baheres, seis, sid, krum shal beitza. The fundamental shayla that we're just trying to understand, just in this whole discussion of Rabbi Akiva, is ultimately, again, everyone agrees that in some way, somehow, these colors can be mitzvah, these colors could combine. What's the shayla? Shayla is the order of combination. So do we say that they combine in the order of the white spectrum, or do they just combine in the order of the avos toldos spectrum, or toldos avos spectrum? That's the fundamental shaila. So we'll resolve that in just a few minutes. Take a look. Let's go a little bit weiter. Seis kat semer lavan. Let's go weiter in the Gemara. So my semer lavan. So we'll say, what does it mean? So it says that seis is the color of like white wool. What does that mean, white wool? Might semer lavan. So we'll say the assumption is that what? So is that any white wool? So Amar Rabbi, this is actually quite beautiful. Amar Ravasi, semer naki ben yomo shemechabnin bo lemilas. Well, so listen to this. So Rashi points out over here, it's the Rashi mechabnin first ben yomo. So it's the color of a lamb that was just born. And Rashi points out over here something beautiful. Mechabnin. If you look a few lines down in the Rashi, kach kishon ol takeves va'im lo chachto ein tzamar naki. We'll say apparently when a little lamb is born, so the mother licks the wool of the newborn, and at that point in time, the wool is bright white, Ba'osayom va'rotze latznio lamelas osa lekeves ma'at ha'or mechabno alav shlo yispared v'nimtzat ser mechus chamro. So it's actually amazing. So what would they do? If you wanted to make what's called clay melas, melas means a garment made of fine wool. So what they would do is they would take the little lamb after the mother licked the wool clean, which is such a beautiful image. Ultimately, you're going to have the mother cleaning up her young. So again, the mother cleaning up her young, and then again, the wool is bright white. They would then cover the wool with like a piece of leather. So they would go ahead and essentially it was like a leather coat that they would then put on the young lamb. What would that do? That would protect the wool. Then as the lamb would get a little bit bigger and the wool would grow a bit more as well, then they would shear the lamb and ultimately use that wool to make fine woolen garments. So that's when we say white as wool, we're referring ultimately again to that wool, the newborn wool. Amar Rabbi Chanina, Mashal d'Rabbanan l'ma'ad davar domeh. So what Rabbi Chanina says, looking in the rabbinic model, right, of how the colors combine. What's a good mashal? So says the Gemara, mashal davar domeh, l'trei malchi or l'trei eparchi, like two kings and there are two officers, or there are two governors. Malko shazeh l'mala mi malko, Malko shazeh l'mala mi malko shazeh, ve'ifracho shazeh l'mala mi parcho shazeh. The one king is greater than the other king, and one governor is greater than the other governor. So the Gemara says, "Hay lemala mizeh, v'zeh lemala mizehu." So we'll say what it sounds like over here is the following: the mashal sounds like you have two kings, and each of the kings has a governor, but one of the kings is greater than the other kings. So therefore, their order of hierarchy is what? King 1, king 2, governor 1, governor 2. Which I will say sounds like an order that says what? Baharas seis sid krum shal beitza. The problem is, that's the Seder of Rabbi Akiva, not the Seder of the Rabbanan. Ella, Malko Shalzel Amala Me Parchei Dinafshe, Umalko Shalzel Amala Me Parchei Dinafshe. Rather, no. The way to understand it is how this king is greater than his governor, and this king is greater than his governor. Which Rabbi say creates a model of what? Avos and Toldos. That the order ultimately, according to the Rabbanan, is Baheres and its toldo, which is sid, and seis and its toldo, which ultimately again is krum shal beitza. Rav Adabar Ava Amar Kigon Malka va'al kafta rufila v'reish galusa. So we'll say Rav Adabar Ava gives a little bit more of a dramatic example. He gives the king and his entourage, like a king Malka. So we'll say these are all secondary officers. Rashi points out over here, Malka va'al kafta shnei malachim heim. Umalka choshu me'al kafta. They're both like kings, but the king is greater than the al kafta. Rofila is the parchush shal malka. He's like the officer or the governor. Veresh galusa. So we'll say these are all secondary officers. Hai zeh lemala mizehu. So we'll say, is this not a case ultimately again of one who is greater than the other? Elikagon malka rofila va'al kafta veresh galusa. But rather, again, the image that's being given over here, both say, is of greater, meaning one officer greater than the other, given in order of greatness, greatest to least greatest. So both say the idea over here is that in the Rabbanan's model, all of the colors build off one another, ultimately, again, in order of the various shades of white. Rava Amar Rava says, Kigon Shavar Malka v'Keser. The colorations can be compared to King Shapur and the Caesar. Amarli Rav Papa the Rava, hey man, tell me who's greater, King Shapur or the Caesar? Both said this is a great exchange. So listen to this. Amarle, B'chorshe Ka'achalei, What do you live in a forest? Or as well say, so this is like a Talmudic shtach. Like, do you live in a forest? It means like, is your head under a rock? Like what? You don't know who's greater, King Shapur of this or the Caesar? Puk chazi tiva deman sagi ba'alma. Go and see who is greater in the Welt, right? Go and see. Go look around the world and you see who's greater. Dichsiv, because the pasuk says, "Vatochal kol ara v'tadoshna vatidkana vatidakna." Ultimately, again, because the pasuk also the Gemara over here is quoting the pasuk from Daniel, and the pasuk says ultimately again, "Vatochal kol ara." He goes out. Ultimately, again, it consumes and threshes the entire world. Who is that? Rabbi Yochanan Zuromi. This refers to Romi Chayeves. This refers to Rome. We'll say this refers literally to guilty Rome, the guilty empire of Rome. Shetiva Yatzav Olam, who's Teva, who was known throughout the entire world. Kulo, Kulo. Ravina Amar Kegon Glima. So we'll say fine. So that's Rome. So Ravina Amar Kegon Glima de Amar V'Shachke Sadina de Kisna V'Shachke. So we'll say ultimately again, Ravina ultimately gives the example over here of different colorations. He says if you want to see a difference in avos and their toldos, the difference would be Kegon Glima Damar V'Shachke. So we'll say Glima Damar means a new white garment and an old white garment, right? And a new linen garment and an old linen garment. So if you want to see an example ultimately again of avos and toldos, so for example again Baheres and its tolda would be like a new white garment, that would be like Baheres, and ultimately again, now we'll say now obviously Baheres is actually brighter than wool, because at the end of the day, again remember Baheres is considered to be like what? Is considered to be like snow, but he's just giving imagery. Just so you can see the distinction between avos and toldos. Ultimately, again, will be like the new white garment, the old white garment, the new linen garment, the old linen garment. Take a look at Rashi for just a moment. Ravina Amar, Mashal de Rabbanon, Ki gon glima de Amra, Shu Maluban, Kishu Chadash, Velipno Mafi Karbe Yosem Mishal Talis Yishana. So the Ravina just says that the Mashal of the Rabbanon will be like a brand new woolen garment that is exceptionally white, and ultimately much brighter than an old and woolen garment. Glima de kisna v'shachke, she'achadash lashon harbe mishal yashan, haval achadasho shalzu v'shalzu kruvos lio shavos. Kacha b'heres kava yosem min asid shuto daso, v'aseis min akrum v'avos krom. So let's listen to this. Interestingly enough, as much as a distinction between a new woolen garment and an old woolen garment, and a new linen garment and an old linen garment, but there's not as much of a distinction between what? A new woolen garment and a new linen garment. That there's a lot of overlap between, and there's a lot of similarity between. So to Rabbosai, although there is a dramatic difference in the avos and the toldos, there's not as much of a dramatic difference in what? The avos. That between Baheres and Seis, the whiteness is very similar. Masha'in came between, again, so between the avos and the toldos of Baheres and its tolda of Sid, and Seis and its tolda of Krum Shal Beitza, that there is a much greater distinction. So we'll say, let me share with you for a few minutes that we have left the Rambam. So you have it on your WhatsApp. So you could pull it up there if you want to. I'm just gonna read it to you as well. Just don't check anything else on your phone while you are pulling up the Rambam. So we'll say, listen to this. So we'll say, let me just read this to you quickly, because this will actually help to frame the discussion. So this is from the Rambam, Hilchos Saras, Perek Aleph. So let's just read through these halachas. Number one, says the Rambam, Halacha Aleph, Saras or habasar sheyal bin makom min ha'or, v'ti'a halev nunis kekrum beitzu mikrum beitzu lamala. So we'll say number one. The Rambam says, number one, that halacha l'maisa, again, the lowest level, so to speak. You say the least white level that constitutes saras habasai is what? Is krum shal beitza. So it's a discoloration of the skin that has to be, again, no darker than the krum shal beitza, than the membrane of the egg. Aval livnunis shehidiha mikrum shal beitza ulamata ina saras elaboaku. Rabbi say if we have a discoloration of whiteness that is darker than the membrane of the egg, that is not saras. That's halacha namar, Rabbi say. So the least white there are better words here. The least white on the white spectrum of tzaras is krum shal beitza. Anything less than krum shal beitza, bosai, is not considered to be tzaras. Okay, base. Va'abamaros yesh b'tzaras, bosai. And bosai, these are, and again, here's the amazing part, meaning we know this. Between yesterday and today, we've become proficient in these halachas. There are 4 different types of tsaras discolorations. And what are they? Lovan azbioser, shein lamali mene, shunira ba'arak habasar, kishalek. Hunikra beheres. So we'll say number 1 on the spectrum is, we're now going from most white to least white. Number 1 on the spectrum is beheres. Beheres is snow white. Snow white. Next. Velovan shidiam bezemat, shunira kitsemer naki, shal keves ben yomo, huanikra se. So we'll say underneath beheres is what? Underneath Beheres Shabbos will be the whiteness of wool, like the wool of a newborn sheep, is seis. Seis. So we have Beheres, underneath that seis. V'loven shudia mina seis ma'at hunira kisida echal hunikra tolba tzara shunikra sapachas. I will say underneath that is the color of the plaster of the Beis Hamikdash, and what is that called? That's called sapachas. That's called sapachas. V'loven shudia misida echal ma'at vari kikrum beitza. Who told us v'gam zeh nikrei sapachas. We'll say underneath that is like the color of the membrane of the egg. That's also called sapachas. So we'll say sapachas is the biblically generic term for anything that is a derivative of an av. So the avos are baheres and sais. Baheres and each have their derivative or their secondary form of whiteness, where they're both called sapachas. There are 2 biblical forms of sapachas. One is sid, the color of plaster of the Beis Hamikdash. The second is the color of the membrane of the egg. Get ready for this. Hine lamarto. Shamareshu kisid ha'echel hu sapachas habaheres. Va'amareshu kikrum beitzu hu sapachas haseis. She'ein lashon sapachas el tirah. So we just saw this. So all sapachas means is what? All sapachas means is what? Secondary. Secondary. Each of the avos, each of the primary colors of Baheres and Seis each have their own sapachas. The sapachas of Baheres is sid, the color of plaster. The sapachas of the Seis is krum shalbeit, they call the egg membrane, the whiteness of the egg. Mikan amru chachamim maros negoim shnayim shein arbo. This is why Chazal say, we'll say beautiful, it all ties together. This is our Mishnah. This is why the Mishnah says that when it comes to the colors of tsaras, there are 2, which are 4. What are the 2 Rabbosai? Baheres and Visapachta, Seis Visapachta. The 2 Rabbosai are the 2, Baheres and Seis. Baheres, which is the color of what Rabbosai? Color of snow. Seis, which is the color of newborn wool. And Sapachta, which, so those are the 2, which are 4. Each of them, again, have their own derivative. They're secondary. Gimel. Rabbosai Halacha Gimel. Arba Maros Elu. Rabbosai, here's the part that we were struggling with Rabbi Akiva and the Rabbanon. Arba Maros Elu. Kulan mitztarfon ze im ze. Rabbi say these 4 colors all combine one with the other. Bein lahakel, bein lahachmir. Rabbi say we'll see what this means. Bein betchilas riyas hanega, bein besof hashos. Rabbi say now we're not going to get into the complexities of these halachos. We're looking at this from just a little bit of an aerial view over here. But the point that Rabbi makes is all of the colors combine with each other. Bein la'achar sheniftar betzar. Fine. Ketzad. We'll say, how do they combine with each other? Here we go. Echad nega shayakula lavan kisheleg, o kisid ha'echal, o kitsemer naki, o kikrum beitza. Ve'echad nega shuhaya miktsas halavan kimara habaheres, u miktsaso kimara haseis, u miktsaso kimara sapachas, hakol kimara echad tu chashav. Oh, it was like, wow, such a relief, because we didn't know what the answer was. Now that Rambam says it's okay, here's the answer. The answer is everything combines. Everything combines. All of these 4 colors are Mosai. Of, again, Baheres, and its Toda, which we call Sid, and Seis, and its Toda, which we call Krum Shal Beitza, all of them combine. So it's like, even though, again, there is a color spectrum, lest you think that the Toda can only combine with its Av, or one color could only combine with the color above it, it's not true. Even, for example, Rabbi the bottom of the spectrum, which means the least white, which is Krum Shal Beitza, could go in and combine with the most white, for example, which is the Baheres. As long as they are all within the spectrum of Tsaras, all colors have the Akol Kimara Echad Chashav. So I'll say, second page in the Rambam, Im Kain Lama Manu Osan Chachamim V'Amru Maros Nugaim Shtaim Shein Arba. So we'll say, here's the fundamental shaila. See, remember the Gemara asked this question. It's very exciting. The Gemara asked this question. What did the Gemara ask? I don't understand. If all of the colors combine with each other, so I'll give you a simple. You could have just saved me 2 blot of Gemara. How do you see me blot of Gemara? Say, we'll say a very simple thing, which is what? Every color of white that is lighter than the white membrane of the egg and above is saras, and everything combines with each other. And leave me alone. No, not leave me alone. But I mean, and we're done. And the discussion is over. Why, if all of if all of them combine anyway, why are you spending so much time on Baharis looks like this, and its Toda looks like this, Seis looks like this, and its Toda looks like this, and the order is Av Toda Toda, or Av Toda Toda Av, or Av Toda Toda Av Toda Toda Av Toda. Why do you have to get into all this? Just make it simple. Anything from Krosha, Beitza, and whiter is Saras, and everything combines. So why do you have to create this more complicated construct of Shtayin Shein Arba? Because Rabbi say this construct allows us to remember all of the different types of discolorations. Why? Why is this important? Shekol kohen she'eno makir hamaros u'shmosein kishemelamdin oso umodian oso lo yira hanega achiyavin v'yakir. Because Rabbi say to teach us that you have to pass the Tsaras Kohanic proficiency exam before you could go ahead and paskin on these shalos. Remember again, both say Tsaras is unique. Is that if you look at your arm and you see a discoloration, you say, "Oh, fantastic! I just learned Daf Yomi. I know that's a seis. That's a seis. It's like newborn wool." Both say you can't paskin on nigoim unless, of course, what you go to a kohen. So both say a kohen has to be versed. Therefore, again, the Gemara says the whole construct that we have over here of seis, baheres, sid, krum shal beitza is in order for the Kohanim to become well versed in the halachos concerning saras. Therefore, again, both say so because the Kohanim have to become umodiyano, so we teach him lo yira nega atshem v'yakir. Even though, again, technically speaking, anything above anything wider than krum shal beitza is saras and combines. The Kohanim must have a level of proficiency in understanding tzaras, and therefore, again, these Mishneh constructs are in fact there in order to teach the Kohanim the various halachas. So the Kohen has to be adshi yavin v'yakir. The Kohen has to be able to discern and to say v'yomer zui habaheres v'zui hasapachas v'zui haseis v'zui safachta. The Kohen has to be able to identify. This is a baheres. This is a seis. This is sid. This is krum shal beitza. Ultimately, again, that's what we'll say how the Rambam paskins. And in halacha dalid, which we're not going to get into right now, we'll say, but the Rambam just says over here, in this case, he gets into this discussion, which the Gemara just touched on kind of tangentially, of haye b'mare halovan me'ar b'maros elu, miktsas admumis mu'uravisbo, kamzen negatzaras. So we'll say, so too, again, even though we're talking in the context of the white spectrum, there is this concept, ultimately, again, when there is red mixed in with the tzaras, that can also become tzaras. So we'll say, well, for our purposes, again, Baruch Hashem, we have a little bit of closure on this. For our purposes, Lemais, again, what we have is now at least we know the construct of tzaras. 2 avos, 2 toldos, the avos being baheres and seis. The tolda of baheres ultimately again is sid, the color of plaster. The tolda of seis is krum shal beitza, the color of the egg membrane. That construct actually is there in order to understand, to allow the Kohanim to become well versed in these halachos. And I will say, for our purposes in Hilchos Saras, pretty much anything wider than the egg membrane and above, ultimately is Saras, and all the colors combine with one another in order to form the Shia of Saras. Shkach Chavosi will stop over here for today.
Can the Kohen pass him on himself?
Kohen can't pass him on himself. No, he has to.